Hello everyone, I'm Adam Steele from EVO, and this is a video where I'm going to help you set your EVO 4, EVO 8 or EVO 16 up with your DAW. Today, we're going to be covering Logic Pro. First things first, we're going to want to plug in our interface. If it's an EVO 4 or EVO 8, we're going to want to plug the USB-C connection straight into our Mac or PC. If we're using a Mac, it's likely going to be a USB-C to C cable. If it's a PC, it's likely to be a USB-C to A cable. Both work exactly the same, provide exactly the same sound quality, it just depends which end works with your machine. Next, we're going to look at drivers. Whilst it is true that many Macs and PCs will work to some extent with an EVO interface without any extra software, we highly recommend that you get the drivers from the EVO website. These will give you the best functionality, the most performance with your DAW, and the best overall experience. So head to evo.audio in your browser. So here we are at the evo.audio website, and we're going to go to the top to Products and select the audio interface from here that is exactly the one that you own. In my case here, it's the EVO 4. Head down the page a little bit and we will see a Downloads tab. Give this a click. And we bring up a page with the documents, including the manuals if you want to read in detail, and also the drivers at the bottom of the page for Mac and Windows. Select the one that is relevant to you, get that downloaded and install that on your computer, and I'll see you back here shortly. Once the EVO app is installed on your computer, you will now have this running in the top right corner on macOS and in the bottom right on Windows with the letter E. If we give that a click, then we can click Show EVO Control or to show the mixer for the EVO 8 and EVO 16. The EVO Control for the EVO 4 is a nice way to look at exactly the same features that are available on the front of the hardware. With the EVO 8 and 16, the EVO Mixer will give you some more control over the more fine aspects that we will cover later on. Now that the drivers are installed, it's time to fire up our DAW. And now let's open Logic. Upon opening Logic, it may ask you which interface you need to use. If it doesn't, then we go to Logic Pro at the top and Preferences and Audio. In this menu, we need to make sure that Core Audio is enabled and then choose an output device. In this case, we're going to choose EVO 4, although that would be 8 or 16 respectively. And then we're going to talk about I/O buffer size. Buffer size is related to latency. If we needed a far more quick turnaround so that there's no delay in the headphones or on the speakers, say you're doing a singer's live performance and they want EQ and compression through the software, we can manage how much of that delay there is until it's almost imperceptible with something like a 128 or even 64 sample latency, and that can be much better for the performer. However, once you get a very busy mix going with many tracks, that might cause the machine, Mac or PC, to start stuttering and popping and clicking or having dropouts of any kind. In this case, we can change the I/O buffer size to be much larger, which gives the computer some breathing room so that it's got more time to do what it has to do, and so less issues arise when you're trying to deal with a heavy mix. The other thing that you may want to change at this point is sample rate and bit depth, and that for Logic is a per project setting. So this needs to be set for every project that you work on, although it does persist in between projects if you never need to change it. We're going to go to File and Project Settings and General. We're going to go over to the Audio tab at the top here, and we can look at sample rate. The sample rate I've set to 48 kilohertz. 48 kilohertz is generally accepted as used with film. 44.1 is generally accepted as used if you're going to be working on a CD. If you're not sure which one you need to use, have a look around, ask some people. You may find that it doesn't really matter, or that whatever's most important to you, it's a very personal thing. The first thing that I'm going to do to get sound is plug in a microphone. I'm going to plug this into input 1 on the EVO 4. This process is the same on the EVO 8 and EVO 16. I've plugged in this vocal microphone, and it needs two things. It needs power and it needs gain. So what we're going to do is press the number 1, which selects channel 1. And then, first thing I need for this is phantom power. So I'm now going to hit the 48V button for phantom power. And that means this microphone, given a couple of seconds, is now powered. The next thing it needs is gain. And we have 2 choices there. Either we can do that by hitting number 1 and then manually selecting the amount of gain that we need from the large knob on the front of the EVO interface, or we can use the Smart Gain feature. Check out Smart Gain in the manual and on some of the other videos here. Once that's set, we need to get our microphone into Logic. Now there's already a track here because if I delete that, then we'll go back to what Logic shows me, which is this screen, where it says choose a track type. And the first option that I would choose here is audio. And so when we open this, it will now ask me which audio input I would like to use. This is plugged into input 1. And the audio output, I would choose output 1 and 2, which is usually where my monitors or headphones would be connected. I'm going to hit create. And so we have a channel here. And by default, that has been record armed, which means I can see levels there. But at this point, there's a good chance you won't be able to hear them. And we need to do a few things to sort that out. Firstly, we need to turn up the volume on the interface, which if you're doing things safely, then your speakers may have been turned off until this point, your headphones may have been disconnected, so that we don't get any glitches or clicks or pops through those. And so we're going to click the volume button and then use the encoder on the front to turn the volume up as much as needed. Secondly, we need to look at monitoring. And there are 2 ways to do this. Both are valid, but are quite different. Number 1, we're going to try monitoring through Logic. In this case, we're going to click the I button for input monitoring. And that should now be coming out of your headphones. Be careful if this is coming out of speakers. This may be causing some kind of feedback. So having live microphones near speakers is generally good practice to keep them turned down or only use headphones. Also at this point, we can now use the channel strip to add things like EQ and other effects, and we will hear them through Logic. The alternative option is to use either the EVO Control or EVO Mixer. In the EVO Control, we can see a little icon with a couple of faders on it, and if I click the exact same button that matches on the EVO 4, we can control whether we're using input monitoring from the interface, which is near 0 latency, and we do that by moving the encoder. And you can now see on the screen, if this dial is all the way to the left, we will only hear inputs 1 and 2. If this is all the way to the right, we will only hear the audio coming from Logic. And if it's somewhere in the middle, then we get a balance of the 2. And whichever way you move the encoder determines how much proportionally we're going to hear. On the EVO Mixer, you will see sliders instead of this audio monitoring, and just turn up the necessary slider or turn it down if it's too loud or not needed. You may find that you're getting what I call ghosting, which is where you've got 2 copies of the same audio, one coming near 0 latency from the EVO 4 and one coming from Logic. So it sounds like a kind of doubled or chorused effect, almost like you have a ghost. The way to solve this is you have to choose one monitoring method or the other. So if we're going to monitor through the EVO 4 with 0 latency, then we're going to have to mute the audio track, or we're going to go into the EVO Control with the monitoring and make sure that's all the way to the right so that we're listening only to Logic. And that's it. So if there's anything else that you'd like us to answer for you, please feel free to leave a comment down below in the comments section. Otherwise, if there's anything else you still need, feel free to talk to us at our support. Thanks everybody for watching, good luck and have fun, and we'll see you soon.